And you know what? I think if parenting came with a module, a manual of life would be so much easier.
And a lot of people who have kids probably would not have children because they wouldn't want to do the work.
Definitely.
Good day, Alicia. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
This is just going to be a casual conversation, nothing formal. We had just finished a program that you have facilitated today. Just for the interest of the viewers, can you just give us a brief description what it was about and the purpose thereof and what inspired you to do this?
Okay, well, I'll start with what inspired me. Youth, actually. I asked the youth, I have a series of programs that I've been doing, a 5-day program, but every month I meet with youth throughout the country, and I ask them, what subjects are important to you? What do you want to learn about? What are you trying to cope with? And how can I help you? So fear was one of those topics. So today we talked about conquering your fear. And I do it from 3 different perspectives. I do it from the philosophical perspective. I do it from the scientific perspective and also the spiritual perspective. So what are the approaches? What do they say about fear? And I also outlined 7 types of fear that we talked about today and gave either tools or ideas to help people overcome those fears. And then the last thing we finished up with was a fear worksheet or a fear plan. So they took one of the fears that is troubling them the most and answered a series of questions so they can have something accountable that they can actually do in the next week to help them face their fears.
Okay. And like I mentioned to you before we started, you covered a variety of topics, and for some of the statements that you made, I actually made a few notes, for the stuff that stood out to me. Like I mentioned to you, I'm also on that journey. I would say, in terms of self-discovery, I can say I have arrived. It's just now articulating that to the next person is the next challenge for me personally. Hence, I want to leave this disclaimer now for everything else that I say from here out forward. The kind of stuff that I will be highlighting, it's stuff that some people will consider very sensitive and controversial. And thus, I want to say, whatever I might say today, if it doesn't add any value to you, you don't have to accept it. And also, I would also request for you not to reject it outrightly, because all that I'm sharing with you, it's my perspective and how I experience life in my shoes. So what is truth for me might not be necessarily truth for the next person. So I just feel like I want to make that disclaimer because like you mentioned throughout your program and what you reference now as well, that you look at things and try to explain it with 3 different perspectives, which is the scientific one, the philosophy, and spiritual, right? And there is a need for this type of programs that you are doing, precisely because of where humanity or society's mindset is today. And based on my observation and from concept that I've learned, I've discovered that we have been programmed to have this particular mindset, which we have, which brings about this need for the type of programs you are offering. And I am of this belief that it is time for society to reprogram itself holistically and for us to function differently. And I would make an example, if I can use the economy as an example. We are having poverty today because poverty is built into the system of the economic system. Without poverty, the economy cannot function. And my view is how we trade and what we consider the economy to be is actually not following laws. Laws, when I speak about laws, is laws our creator designed this universe to operate on. Like the example I used earlier, if I take this a sheet of paper and I drop it, if I let it go, due to the law of gravity, it is going to fall 100% of the times. No matter what I say or you say or how we would like to argue, that is a fact that will be unchangeable, and none of us has the capacity to do that, right? So when I say society needs to reprogram the way we think and the way we interact, it should be following the laws that already exist, because society has created rules through churches, through institutions, through the school. We must, like example, to speak to the specific topic you highlighted today, fear. In school, fear was programmed into us that if you answer wrong here, you are a failure. You were not conditioned, okay, you found out now what is wrong. You will have an opportunity to fix it next time. So we look at fear as if I fear now, then it's finished. There's no coming back from that. So that is how we perceive fear today in society, right? So when I say society needs to function on laws, it speaks to, in terms of fear and how we experience fear, we will learn that fear is actually part of the process. Because like my life coach taught me, how do children learn to make decisions? The parent can advise as much as they want, but the child is only going to learn to make better decisions by making decisions. So if they make a poor decision, they have to suffer the consequences. Only when they suffer the consequences, then there's a learning opportunity for a learning experience. And if they make a positive decision with positive outcome, there's a learning experience as well, because naturally you would want to repeat something that is good for you, right? And that is where I say society needs to be reprogrammed in the way we function and in the way we perceive life. But I'm just gonna stick to that one for now and hear what you have to share on that before I get into the others.
Thank you very much for sharing your perspective. I agree with you wholeheartedly about, I would say it a little bit differently. Yeah. I believe that the current structure of economy is dependent upon keeping people in poverty, so that those who are at the top can thrive. And as long as we keep that mentality of capitalism is built on slavery and poverty. So as long as we want that type of capitalism to be the ruling thought, then we're going to suffer those consequences. And we'll always have oppression. But like you said, God's identity that he wishes for humanity is very different. It's having the opinion of abundance, that we are supposed to live an abundant life. There is enough for everybody. Of everything. We don't have to live with this mentality of scarcity, which is a fallacy that we've accepted. And it's something that has been put upon us due to colonialism, patriarchy, all the archies and isms. All of those things are to hold that structure in place. And what my dream is by instilling value-centered success, value-driven success in youth, you change that mindset, because now what you define for success doesn't have to be what I define for success. But when I think about God, if we all are an aspect of the Creator, everything that's ever existed throughout all time and that will happen in the future, we all reflect together the humanity of God. So you being the best version of yourself and me being the best version of myself, together we are a reflection of God in community with each other. And all these other isms have worked to take us away from pursuing that and defining ourselves by someone else's terms who benefits off of our oppression. And so for me, this is my way of fighting that. It's my way of just getting people to wake up to, hey, I have a perspective. Hey, I have a purpose. Hey, I have something that I can say and do to enhance the quality of life for myself and those around me, and how that ripples out into the rest of the world. So that's kind of my philosophy of how I do things. It's a little, I stated a little bit differently, but I think we hold the same principles as true.
Have you heard about this term holographic effect? Mm-hmm. And just give me like a small description of what your understanding of that is.
Well, if you're talking about homograms and holograms, that is that perspective of everything being connected and how everything can ripple. And when you look at it from that, and this is like very simple because you can spend years studying this, but looking at it from that perspective, there's an interconnectivity that we cannot escape. And I think that's the crux of humanity, is our interconnectivity. And when you look at things from that perspective of how everything is connected, then it's going to inform your decisions. It's going to inform how you act. It's going to inform how you show up in the world. But we live under that false impression that everything is living in dichotomy. Everything is living in these nice little silos and boxes and don't touch each other. Because as long as this group is not talking to this group, I can do whatever I want to this one, and this group is going to be oblivious. Yeah, this group remains oblivious. But when you talk about holacracy and all of those terms, you are actually removing those barriers and allowing, like, for example, I love the concept of power as something to study, because it's been made as something that's negative. You know, being in power is either something that you attain and you fight and you hold on to forever, or it's something you avoid because it's negative and bad. But I see power as an energy that's meant to flow from person to person. So when you need the position of power, when you need the resource of power, you can have it. And when you're done with it, it can flow to the next person, and it can flow to the next person, and so on. And when you have that kind of perspective of power, then I think that's a much healthier environment to live in. And so that's kind of how I would interpret that concept. Is that's just one aspect of it. But imagine if every aspect of humanity was like that, where we weren't trying to hold on to something with a death grip because we think it's never going to come back to us, or that somebody does it differently is going to be hurtful necessarily to me. It's just different.
As you were speaking now, it's like, can I say orgasms? My brain was just going off. But there's a specific reason why I asked that question, and I agree with you 100% with everything you just said. But I also want to share with you how it came to me learning of that term, how that term was introduced to me. So my initial understanding of that term when it was introduced to me, the way it was introduced is someone asked a question, and then in by asking this question they also made a statement. So the statement they made was to say that the Bible has an holographic effect. And here is where I initially first was introduced to this term. And the explanation the person gave was that when you read the Bible, a specific verse, and I read the Bible, a specific verse, for some reason we get different interpretations. Although it's still connected, like the underlying connection you made reference to, it's just given our personal experience and our different perspectives, we get different interpretations therefrom. And also just me, if I read that verse today, I get a certain revelation, but if I read it tomorrow or next week, I get a different, from the same verse, but a different revelation or understanding or interpretation of that verse. So that is how holographic, the term holographic effect was introduced to me, which again helped me to better understand how I view the world. Like you said, you agree with the stuff I say, but you would phrase it differently. Hence, I made these notes based on the stuff you said, and with the same concept in mind, I would phrase it differently. But it's the same thing. And the reason for that was, like I shared with you earlier, because of the environment where I stay, maybe the people around in this environment has a particular experience based on the conditions and the environment. So our thought processes were developed in a particular way. So when we hear certain terms, it's gonna trigger us in certain ways. You understand? Hence I thought, let me share my perspective on the stuff you shared, because when our youth reflects back on this, maybe they didn't understand it when you said it, but now when they hear my perspective, although it be the same thing.